Okay, welcome to our first webinar of 2022. Today, our webinar is about how to engage parents with online safety. My name is Jo Stone and I'm an EdTech demonstrator for the DFE EdTech programme. The programme offers free support to schools, so please go to the website and find out more. The website is edtechdemo.ucst.uk. So today I'm really pleased that we're joined by Adam Lappage. Adam is the Assistant Director of IT and the Online Safety Lead for Discovery Schools Trust. Adam is going to talk to us about the following areas of online safety today. And it's all linked to parent engagement. So it's going to start with why we need to engage parents, why parents might not want to get involved with online safety, what information we share with parents, what strategies have worked for us, and what we intend to do next. So if you have any questions after this webinar, when you're watching it, probably pre-recorded, then please, contact either Adam or myself, and we'll try to answer your questions. So without further ado, I will pass over to Adam so that you can start presenting.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you. Yep, let me just get my presentation up. So, hello and welcome to this webinar about how to engage parents with online safety. So yeah, as Jo mentioned, my name is Adam Lappage and I will be talking to you today to discuss some of the reasons why parents don't want to get involved, why it's a really important thing that schools do try their best to get parents involved with, what strategies we've put in place, the barriers that are there and how we've tried to overcome them, and then sort of have a reflective piece about how effective our strategies have been, what we do next, what we probably wouldn't do, just to give you an idea of kind of what we've been doing as a trust, and what's worked, what hasn't. Obviously, there is no perfect recipe for parental engagement. It's not just online safety. It's all aspects of school life that we struggle with that engagement sometimes. And there's in no means are we saying that this is going to be absolutely suddenly going to get 80% of your parents all in. No, what we are saying is that this is what worked for us. Maybe there's something that you haven't tried on there. Maybe it's something that you actually think, oh, that's a good idea, that could work for our school. So hopefully that kind of gives you the idea of what this presentation is going to be about. So the first thing I want to look at is, why do schools need to engage parents with online safety? We know it's absolutely crucial in keeping children safe, or parents are crucial in that, and they provide that home protection whilst we provide that school protection. But the first thing I want to talk about is children surrounded by technology. So we've never lived in such a rich environment for technology as we do now. We're no more than a click away from the online world. I think we're all as guilty as adults and staff members. We don't go more than probably half an hour without checking something on our phone, a tablet. And I think it's sort of the same for children now, especially when they go home. That idea that they've probably got a tablet or a phone or a laptop, and they probably don't go more than an hour without being connected, whether it's to talk to a friend, to play a game, or whatever it might be. So I think the fact that it's now a lot more acceptable that that's kind of the lifestyle that our children or the next generation of children kind of have, then we need to make sure that parents are educated on how to deal with that. The pandemic obviously has made that even more real for people, and I think going forward, it is likely we might see sort of mini lockdowns in terms of like individual classes potentially, and we know that parents can't spend 6 hours a day with their child during this time, so they're often left alone. So we just need to make sure that we are talking to parents about how to get that message across to their own children. Technological advancements are going to continue to keep going. We're already, progressing at a rapid rate. If you think about, yes, the internet's been out for a long time, but if you think about maybe the last 10 years, how efficient and effective, that the internet isn't how to get onto. You know, if you look back at probably some of our childhoods, you know, dial-up internet took a while, wasn't particularly, everything was very simple. You probably had, you know, probably had things like solitaire, and now we're at a stage where, you know, children are playing 3D games essentially. You know, the next sort of advancement looks to be sort of the metaverse, which I did a talk on yesterday to some of our trust members. But I would have never thought 10 years ago that we'd be looking at technology that can make something 3D and almost touchable in a virtual world, and that's where we are, almost there. So I just think it's worthwhile, engaging parents with the idea that technology never stops and you can't really hide away from it. We've got to all engage with it, whether you're a parent, staff member. We've all got to continue that train of thought. The third one is probably the most biggest and the obvious one. It's just the sad fact that the online world isn't safe. Yes, it has incredible benefits in all facets of children's lives, whether it's learning, friendship, and connecting with family. But as we know, it has many dangers, and I'm not going to list all those dangers, but I do think it's our duty as school leaders and educationalists to communicate this to parents, even if we are stating the absolute obvious. Sometimes we sit here and think, well, surely they know that. Surely, if we can see it, they can see it. It's not always the case, and we all have different experiences with technology, and we have to almost presume that the parents know nothing, start from the base and work up. There's nothing wrong with someone knowing something they already know, but what we don't want to do is miss out important details for those people that maybe didn't know certain things about online safety or the online world. If we look at sort of, again, the pandemic, and I'm sorry to have to keep going back to the pandemic, but it's probably the most opportunist time for predators in the online world. NetClean report, which was done late 2020, has already indicated that the pandemic and lockdown was almost a perfect storm for those individuals that were trying to target children. You've got a lot of children spending a lot of time unsupervised on the internet, not a lot to do, couldn't go out, were making friends in other places. So I do think, if we do go back to this kind of lockdown or anything, any sort of remote learning, on a bigger scale, then that is something that we need to watch out for. Education being the best way to protect children, and the reason I've put this one on here is that I think my experiences with some parents is very defensive. Oh, we don't let them do anything, and I think that sort of train of thought has completely shifted now, and I think we're all about educating rather than trying to ban or stop things. I'm not here to, I wouldn't be here to tell parents how to parent. However, I do think that we need to engage with parents in a way that says, actually, we're not going to castrate you if you've let your child on social media at the age of 9, 10. But what we do think you need to do is make sure you explain to them the dangers, explain to them what to look out for and how to deal with certain situations. We know full well that, friendship groups, once one has a phone, the next one wants a phone. Once one's got an Instagram account, you're never going to stop that peer pressure of, so-and-so's got this, why can't I do that? And then, it's about just educating parents to know that it's okay to let, children go on things early, but you've got to prepare them for that. And you've got to make sure that they know how to deal with some of the scenarios they may come up against, because ultimately there will come a point in their lives, whether it's at a young age or whether it's when they're in their teens or even later, that they do start to have that independence. They will have that phone and internet by themselves. They will have, maybe a laptop for their work and whatever else. And it's good to have those necessary skills early to protect themselves, rather than let them loose later on in the world where they suddenly have overload of, what they've been missing. And that's when we can see potential issues. So why do some parents not want to engage with online safety? So we're not talking about every parent here, but we all know that there is a large group of parents that we would like to target a lot more. They normally consider the hard to reach parents. So why don't they engage with us? Well, the fear of not understanding technology is probably one of the biggest reasons. And research has sort of suggested this as much, that actually we don't like doing things we don't want to do. And I think I can resonate with that for sure. And I'm sure Joe can, and anyone else that's watching, that when we do things that we don't want to do or we're not very good at, we don't want people to sit there and be like, how do they not know that? It makes us feel silly. And that fear that parents have is real. And I think we've got to somehow break that down. And I'll look at how we overcome barriers on the next slide. But it does hold a lot of parents back. Our current generation of children, and probably even my generation, would be considered digital natives. So that term means that we grew up with the technology, we understand it, we know it, it's been with us our entire lives. That's not the case for some of our parents, and they'd be considered what's called digital immigrants, that they've had to sort of immigrate with the technology, and that's a lot more of a struggle for them. So I think we need to sometimes sit back and realize that actually they're just scared, and maybe sometimes they need a familiar face that says it's okay not to know, it's okay to to not know some of the basics. We can help with that. The second one there about they think they do enough. I think there's a general belief that a lot of parents think they've got it all covered, and they are probably doing an incredible job. And I'm certainly not saying that the parents aren't doing an incredible job, but they probably do have the parental controls on, they do read the newsletters, and they probably sit there and say, well, why do I need anything else? And I think it's important for us to realize and to keep plugging away at those parents, say, there's always more stuff to learn. There's always new technology coming out. There's always the next thing. The third one about time, and I think time is, there's never enough time, whether it's for us as educationists and work, and whether it's parents. There's never enough time, especially around the school day. Most of our parents work, and therefore it makes it incredibly difficult for them to attend a lot of events. We then look at evenings, and that's not always straightforward. We've got single parents, childcare issues, double jobs, other commitments, and we know how busy our children are, swimming, after school clubs, whatever it might be. So when schools, and I'll talk about this a bit more in the next slide, but it's about being flexible and accommodating and trying to make, if you are going to do an event, make it as easy as possible. And you're trying to get onto parents' level of when's best for them. They have bad online habits themselves and don't see a problem. And I think this is a lot of people, including myself, actually, we probably don't always follow what we preach, and therefore sometimes can be blind to the fact that the online world isn't always a nice place. I think sometimes the question parents probably have is, well, actually, I do this and I've never had a problem, therefore it should be fine for my children. But that's not always the case. Children are, very different to adults in terms of maturity, and sometimes they don't understand what they're getting themselves involved with. So I think we need to sort of, make sure that those parents that think that they realize it can happen, and just because it's not happened to them, that doesn't mean it won't. So I've talked about, why they might not. So how do we overcome some of these barriers? So first and foremost, it's about explaining to parents that online safety is just as much about parenting than it is about the technology. The fact that you didn't grow up with technology, you don't understand it, actually a lot of the principles behind keeping children safe online is ultimately about parenting and about the principles, not the technology itself. If you look at things like the online and, the real world, you wouldn't, let a child, go and see a stranger. So how is that different than letting them play online with strangers? And sometimes it's not about, as I say, the technology. It's not about knowing what the Xbox does and how to do this. It's actually about just keeping them safe. Building trust and relationships. I think this is probably the most important sort of barrier, to overcome is building those relationships and trust. And we've worked really hard over the past year to try and build as many positive relationships as possible. We know that there's always going to be parents, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you put in, there's always going to be some that you just can't engage with, and you have to accept that. And yes, we keep fighting to get them in, but you have to accept that you can't sometimes hit everybody. But what we can do is try our best to, to get as many parents on board with as possible. What we found really good is using our ELSAs, our emotional learning support assistants, and pastoral teams to reach out to those parents that are not that are not that forthcoming, build that relationship. So when it does come to online safety, they feel a bit more comfortable. Because they know that the person that's talking to them is familiar. It's someone that they maybe it's not about respect, but they really connect with. We like to do the whole like, okay, well, we don't know it. Why don't you come and join this session with me? We can learn together. That idea that we're all one and we're all trying to help each other. Be accommodating and cater for as many people as you can. It's a bit like what I've just said, but be flexible with your timings. We even with our trust, different schools, different strategies, different parents, different strategies. And some of our schools very much like having a lot of things virtual, and their parents really get on board with virtual learning in terms of webinars that they can just log into and view at night. Others, that doesn't work for them. Maybe they don't have access to the devices to do that, so face-to-face is a better option. The time of the day can have a really big difference. When we've done our sessions, we've ran them, we sent out a survey, got times, and then went with the 2 or 3 majority. So we did one maybe after drop off in the morning when they're already coming in anyway, maybe before drop off, and after school after they've picked up. So we've tried to be as flexible as possible. We've offered childcare. I know sometimes that can be a reason. Oh, I've got another child, he's only 2, what will I do with them? Well, we've offered childcare where they can put them in another classroom with one of our support staff, and still come to the sessions. So showing real examples when it goes wrong. I think this one probably looks at more when we're talking about parents that maybe think they do enough, or parents that have got bad habits themselves and don't really understand that things can go wrong. Sometimes we have to shock them, and I know it's not always nice, and I think anyone that's sort of maybe watched things like Brett's Game and those kind of things, it's not a nice watch, and we don't want to scare parents so they turn around and say no technology. But sometimes they need that little shock effect to realize that the online world isn't safe and it can happen to anybody. So using pupils to drive the online safety agenda, something that is, I think, really important, and something that we're going to be really pushing as we move forward is using pupils to help push our online safety agenda. There's nothing more powerful than children and using them to teach their own parents. So it's something we've worked really hard on, and I'm talking about some of the initiatives on the next slide, but it's something that I really think people should work with. It's a really good initiative. And then little but often, we have to be careful we're not overloading our parents in one go. What we found is when we do events, that little and often is often better than cramming a massive session into an hour where we're just firing information at parents, because it's overload for them. They can't process everything you've said. So little and often keeps the agenda going. It means it doesn't phase out. It's not a once a year thing, and it allows it to have more probably a more status in school. So what have we tried and what has worked? So I wanted to just talk about some of the things we've tried over the last 12 months, what's worked, what hasn't, and I want to be honest with that, because I think it's very easy for me to come here and tell you that everything we've done has been successful. It hasn't. We've had to sometimes go, hold our hands up, that's not worked. That just doesn't work. Parent workshops, mixed success with this. We've tried to be as flexible as we can, but I think sometimes it works and sometimes it hasn't. I think we've done ours with our pastoral teams, and that really did work. Like I said earlier on the last slide, we tried it with me standing up the front and delivering to a school. Adam,
I've just noticed the slide hasn't moved on for me, so I'm just wondering whether it just needs a bit of a refresh.
Okay, yeah, let me stop presenting and re-present. I'm glad you said that, else that could have been.
Yes, I was just thinking it'd be nice for everyone, to see what you were talking about.
Let's go back to.
That's great. Yeah.
Is that working? Brilliant.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I'm not sure what happened there. It was all right on my side anyway, but no.
Thank you.
Parent workshops. Yeah, so like I was saying, originally I was standing at the front delivering to, many of our different schools, and we found that we just weren't getting that connection. But when we started to involve some of our ELSAs and our pastoral teams and some of our teachers that maybe parents knew rather well, we seem to get a better turnout. So something we've learned in that is to use the people that are most connected to the parents that you're trying to target. Pupil-led initiatives really successful this year. We've delivered our acceptable use policy. So this is a recent one we've done this term or last term, is introduce an acceptable use policy that's been led by the children. And we've got as many people involved, many children involved, as many adults involved as we can with this process. And it's been really nice to connect, parents, adults, children all together to work on something. And we think that's worked really, really well. And I think our next stage with that, I'm going to talk a bit more probably on the next slide, is trying to get them more involved, parents and pupils working together. The online safety group. So if anyone has joined me for a previous webinar, I talked about 360 Safe, and one of the really good things about 360 Safe is it gave us the idea for an online safety group. It's one of the sort of key aspects of it. And we found that it's been a really, really good way to have collaboration with all our stakeholders in one place. So that group meets 3-4 times a year. It has a pupil, a governor, parent, staff member, DSL, senior leadership, sometimes technician. And it allows them to all sit together and talk about online safety and what's coming up next, what initiatives as a school is trying to do. And it's really nice to have that parent input who can then go to the playground and talk about it. That's one of the areas that we as schools find difficult, is that that playground, that idea that parents just waiting their child talking about issues. And it's been really nice to have a parent or two on board who then can go back and sort of keep that agenda that we're trying to raise back to the parents. It's worked really, really well. School assemblies, obviously these were sort of pre-COVID. We've not really been able to do anything since COVID. It's been difficult. We've done some virtual ones, of course, but again, that doesn't really cater for everyone. It can be a bit mixed, but something we want to bring back. Assemblies are a really good way of getting parents in, especially if it's their child. They really, parents really value watching their child do things, which brings me on to the school performances. How many times do we see performance starts at 2 o'clock, parents are at the door at 1:15? Get them in, get them seated. Let's put on a PowerPoint, a presentation, especially if it's a video that their children have done or the class has done. Why not use this time? Use whatever time you can when parents are already in. So include focus days and any open days that they might come to. You use that as best you can. And then the last one, I think, is probably more the obvious one, is newsletters and guides, and get them sent out. I think, and I'm going to talk about next slide about how to send them out. I think the traditional way is via email, whether it's parent mail or something like that. And I think if we move on to the next slide, that middle one there about social media, I think that's something we need to look at more. I know when I spoke to some of our parents, and it's not for every parent, but some of them have said, well, actually, I don't often check my emails, but you know what I do, check when the kids have gone to bed. I'll go through my Facebook, I'll go through, my Twitter or whatever. It'd be nice, actually. I follow the school. Could you put them in there? And I'm more likely to pick them up than an email. So that's something that we want to try and do next. Another thing we want to look at is the expansion of our online safety groups. They have been so successful that I really would like to introduce more parents into it. And it might come to a point where we have a parent group on its, that sort of meet it's within themselves and then come to the online safety group. So really excited about sort of expanding our online safety groups to have more parents engage with that. And then sort of the final one is about the school PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. I think this is something that we haven't used yet, and to probably its best of its ability. And I think that's something that we would like to, thinking about, school fairs or when they do events. There's nothing stopping us having maybe a stall or, whatever it might be, a little bit of time in the day to help talk about online safety, to get, you know, parents and children maybe working on an activity together. Something that it would be really nice to kind of use that time and use the school PTA to kind of to help with that. So that's kind of me sort of finished with, but I just wanted to say, as I said earlier, you know, there is no recipe, you know, perfect recipe that allows us to, you know, get every parent engaged. But use what you can that you've heard today. If there's any ideas that you've got, you know, that maybe I haven't even thought of, you know, feel free to give me an email. If you want to talk about some of the strategies we've done in a bit more detail, my email's on the screen. If you, as Joe said earlier, about if you want to be involved in the EdTech demo program, the link is there as well on the screen. But no, thank you for having me. And Joe, I'm assuming you've probably got some questions or some discussions that we want to, you know, talk now. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just a few. Thanks ever so much, Adam. That was great. Just a couple, and I think just a couple of points as well that sort of stood out there for me that you mentioned. I think, as you said, the power of education then, but not just educating the children, educating parents. It's not just about trying to reach them. It's about gaining that relationship and the trust, and then actually getting on with the educating, you know, for parents as well, and supporting them, and as you say, having that conversation with them so that they're feeling that they can open up to you. So yeah, it's
about supporting parents. We all know how difficult parenting is. You know, it's about supporting them and making them feel, you know, they're safe and secure in this environment. I think, you know, one thing I didn't touch on maybe is for a lot of parents, there is an idea that school's a bit of an authority. You know, maybe they've gone through things with school that, you know, hasn't been the nicest, and we've got to try and bring them back on board and support them and be that person that they know they can come to and say, stupid question, but this has come up, you know, what do I do in this scenario? And let them feel that they are comfortable enough to come and speak to us and not just, you know, don't say anything. So
that's it. If we create that safe space for children in school, we need to also create that safe environment for parents as well. You're absolutely right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I also like the fact that you are saying, really, we've got to do it little and often, and I suppose really keep it on the timetable. Just make sure that we're keeping it on the timetable, keeping it, you know, people familiar with it, just know that it's there and a consistent approach to it, but not overload.
Yeah, I think we're very guilty of, certainly in previous years, and I do think this is changing now, is schools very guilty maybe of, right, well, we've got Internet Safety Day in February, we'll target that week, we'll bombard everyone, whether it's parents, teachers, you know, support staff, pupils. We're going to bombard them all in that week with everything online safety. It's too much to take in, and I think little and often and keeping it on the agenda helps you with your whole school approach anyway, and keeps it, you know, live and keeps it, you know, floating, rather than, right, here's that 1 week or 2 weeks during the year that we're going to absolutely, you know, bombard everyone with everything. So no, I think little and often is me personally the right way to go. Yeah, just keeps that regular approach, doesn't it? So yeah, really powerful message, I think, that one. The other thing I was just going to ask is, how can teachers stay updated with the changes and the rules around online safety? Are there anything that you would recommend? I think there's a lot of websites out there. There's a lot of you know, you can join a lot of mailing sort of groups. So some of the ones that I use are the National Online Centre. That's a kind of a very big one. I use another one called INEQE, INEQE. They are a safeguarding company that regularly produce newsletters, guides, and everything else. I know there's lots that we both use, Joe, sort of your Internet Matters and all those websites that are really got some really great resources on. I think it's just a case of going out there and finding the websites that you find really valuable and just keep sort of scrolling through them regularly, because they're always updating them. Yeah, which leads on really nicely to what I was just going to show very briefly, is just a range of a few of those websites, just so that people, like you say, can have those in their bag of tricks, as it were, as a teacher, but also so that they can also show parents, but also keep updated with themselves, maybe subscribe to, which might be a good idea. Yeah, I normally get a newsletter every month from 2 or 3 different safeguarding companies that allows me just to keep, you know, in case I've missed something. And there's so much out there. You do miss things, new apps that maybe haven't hit our schools yet, but it gives us the heads up that actually this is coming, this is going around nationally.
Yeah, so I think one of those, and I think a lot of people know about this now, but just in case they don't, I'd bring up the BBC Ownit website, which I think is fairly new, in terms of, I suppose, compared to websites like I think this one I think is a fairly recent one, been out a couple of years, would you say?
Yeah, I would say a couple of years, and it is really nice the way it's laid out. It's very learner friendly, should we say? I think it's not, or I don't find the website to be really sort of right. You've got to really read what section I'm trying to find or anything like that. It's done in a nice, short, sometimes videos. It's a great website to start with.
Yeah, I agree. And just to point out that there is a nice parent section there as well, so that parents can help their children with those with the online aspect of their lives there. So that point is quite nice. This one I think is a nice one to know about for teachers, because it's a one-stop shop, as it were. It's got all of the links on. This is called Parents Protect, and I think to give parents this link would be quite useful. I know we've spoken about this one before, Adam, and we've just said how nice it is that you can see all of these websites that you'd want as a teacher, but then you've also got advice about how to link it to mobile phones, handheld devices, gaming, and then the information about inappropriate contact or illegal content there. They've got some nice websites to go to. I'll just scroll down a little bit more just to show what else there is. And again, they've got sites for children. So I think directing parents to this one is probably quite a good idea, really. Lots of information there. So I've just...
Yeah, it's nice that it just has it all on one page and it's very clear. It's not giving you a load of information. What it is providing you with links to get whatever you need. So yeah, brilliant website.
Yeah. And then I know one that we often refer to is the Think You Know website. And again, all schools pretty much know about this one. It's been out for a long time, and obviously reaches all age groups, which I think again is nice. It starts from that, sort of age 4 all the way up to secondary there. But again, it's got a nice parent section on here. So, if teachers need to signpost parents to somewhere really useful, again, this one is a well-renowned favourite, isn't it, I suppose. And I think my other question to you, Adam, as well, just looking at this has just jogged my memory, is do you think parents know enough about what the Internet of Things are and the Internet of Toys? Do you think they're aware of that?
No, I don't think they probably do, Joe. I think you forget sometimes that the internet is everywhere. Smartphones, smart speakers, and I do think that it's something that actually maybe even in our own trust we need to probably promote a bit more about what some of these devices do, what is the Internet of Things, etc. And something that I certainly will probably be putting on the agenda for this term is to kind of get a bit more exposure to that.
Yeah, I should think it's like you say, we have all these things, like you say, the smart speakers, drones, all those sort of things in the household now, but I wonder how we're actually monitoring those and we're aware of what data those sort of devices also take in as well. Another website, again, to point parents in the right direction to is ChildNet, and they've turned it into Digizen. I never say this right, Digizen.org, this area here, which again has got some nice resources to access. They've really thought about the layout, and they've made it quite sort of user friendly, but lots of resources there on that one too. I think you know more about this one than I do, Adam, but the internetmatters.org website is a nice one, isn't it?
Yeah, really nice, especially if you're trying to get tips and guides and stuff like that. Certainly it breaks, if I remember it correctly, it breaks down a lot of the guides, certainly into like broadbands and things. You can just select, okay, well, I'm on Sky or I'm on BT, and it will tell you how to set parental permissions on that particular broadband, or works with a lot of partners. Really good informational website. You can get a lot there. Maybe not for parents as such, but certainly stuff for you to sort of print off to then give to parents, if that makes sense. It's kind of like what's going on in your school at the moment. You can find it on that website for sure.
Yeah, and you were right, there's the guides and resources there, parent guides. So yeah, absolutely right. A nice one to look at there. Another one that lots of teachers know about, but the UK Safer Internet Centre, one obviously that we use for the Safer Internet Day as well. But again, they've got this nice guide for parents about technology and the different aspects of technology. So game consoles, smart TVs, social media guides. So again, really useful to use to get information if you're feeling a bit unsure as to what to recommend to parents. The NSPCC is always a good one to go to, I think, for educators and parents. Would you agree, Adam? I think.
Yeah, lots of really good information there. I think the NSPCC website is probably a bit more hard hitting, if that makes sense, Joe. It's a bit more,
Yes.
It will cover some of the aspects that are a bit more shock value to them, I guess. As you can see, that one about online porn and stuff like that. It's maybe not so child friendly. It's more of a right, this is what can happen kind of website.
Absolutely, but I think again you're absolutely right not to shy away from these things, because it's out there and we just need to make sure we're educating everybody, and this site I think gives you that information that you would need to be able to guide people properly. So yeah, it's a really good point that it is quite hard hitting, that one. The National Online Safety, I know you mentioned this one, but again, great guides for teachers and parents. Lots of parental guides on this one. I've just downloaded one just to show you in a little bit more detail what they look like. They're really nicely laid out, I always think, and quite appealing. But you kind of get the short snippets of information and advice that are manageable.
It's that kind of balance, isn't it, between information and still appealing to the right, it's quite a cool looking poster. It's quite, it has that, you could put that in a classroom and kids actually would go and read it. It's not just a bunch of block text. They've really thought about making it probably child friendly, and something that children would want to actually read and look at as well as parents. So yeah, I really like what they've done with all their posters.
That's it. And I think they think about people's time limits, don't they? They've made it, like you say, short and sharp with the information there. And then the last one is the Common Sense Media site. Again, there's some really great video clips for parents to access. Again, short enough to watch, very quickly, but again, gives you the information that you need at the right time. There's things about Zoom, Instagram, Fortnite. There's the example about YouTube here. So if I just go to that one, you see it takes you there to a video clip that you can then watch and get the right information about different aspects of YouTube there. So I think those websites, as you know, Adam, are really important to know about for teachers, and then obviously to be able to then pass on to parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, no one can know everything, and I think having these great websites that actually, when you go, okay, we've got an issue with that, how can I support my parents in with the children in my class, then it gives you a really nice range of resources there to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you want to add there, Adam, today? I know you've covered a lot anyway, so
no, not that I could think of. Not unless you think I'm missing something. No, I think we've covered it all for now, and yeah, I'm sure I'll be back for another webinar soon. So yeah, no, thank you for having me, Joe.
No, thank you. No, you're absolutely right. I was just going to mention that the next online safety webinar is on the 19th of January. And I believe it's about engaging pupils with online safety and pupil voice. So it'd be nice to see that element of online safety there in that next session. If you are interested in finding out more about EdTech and blended learning, you can also go to the Discovery Schools website and find out what the next block of webinars are for 2022 as well. I'd also just like to finish by thanking Adam again for taking the time to talk to us this afternoon, and thank you for joining us, or thank you for accessing the recorded version of this video if you do, or if you are. And again, as I say, if you've got any questions for Adam or myself, please feel free to contact us, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.